All right, I have Joe Hernandez with me. You've been in stuff such as The Last of Us Part 2, Rage 2, Kingdom Hearts 3, NBA 2K21. This
21, 22, 20. The most like the past couple years, I've been in the past couple NBA 2Ks.
Yeah, you've been balling.
It's been nice, man. Which is funny because I'm so not like athletic at all. I mean, I
Yeah.
I don't really play basketball. Like that's not my thing. I was a swimmer in high school. Like I did water polo. So like basketball was not my thing.
The most I did when it comes to water, so I give you props. I did rowing, and I don't know how to
Oh,
swim, but like being on the machines and actually in the water,
that's
good
a good
time.
workout though.
Yeah, those machines are brutal.
That's a good
They're
workout, man. That's a great
brutal.
way to get some exercise right there.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. But also Spider-Man, um, Breath of the Wild, as
Yeah.
everyone knows. And for shows, I just want to include them. You've been in quite a few adventures because you've been in JoJo's and both Barbie, Dreamhouse
Yeah.
adventures.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been fun to play in those sandboxes, man. And the JoJo's fans, man, they're a special breed all their own. I
They're
mean, like
definitely passionate.
it's funny because it's like sometimes it's like, when you record something, you don't know when it airs and you don't know like what episode per se. They don't
Right.
like lay it out for you like, okay, you're in episode 2, 3. Like sometimes you
Mhm.
kind of have to figure it out on your own. When my episodes from JoJo's would air, believe me, people would blow me up on Twitter and they'd be like, "Hey
You would
man, you're
know.
like this." Yeah, like they were
Yeah,
on top of it. So, I mean, that speaks to how passionate the JoJo's fan base is.
that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like each series that I said have like obviously like different fan bases, but I'm sure like the fandoms kind of react to things differently, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy, man, because I auditioned for I can't remember which I think I know which role. I'm not going to say which,
Hmm.
but for the previous season, I auditioned for Diamond is Unbreakable.
Oh wow.
And I was like, I really wanted this one. I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
come on, this is gonna be
Yeah, this is it.
this is it. And didn't happen. So like I was like, oh man, you kind of, you just kind of, you lick your wounds and you kind of grovel for a little bit and then you pick yourself up and you move on to, whatever the next project is.
Hmm.
And then they came to me and like, hey, do you want to do Golden Wind? And
Oh
I was
wow.
like, yeah, I'm totally down to do that. Like, yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of crazy because it's like it's JoJo's. So everybody in JoJo's is just like chiseled, good looks. Everybody's so
Hmm.
buff and everybody's ripped and everybody's like just super hardcore tough, macho, like just so badass. And they're like, we want you to play Pesci. Who is not any of those things.
Right.
I mean, they showed me the artwork of him, and it's like, yeah, he's got a turnip head, and it's like, okay, how do I do this? Because
Yeah.
like again, you look at like JoJo's, and everybody is just so grounded and so serious and so
Hmm.
tough, and like they're just so badass and everything, and then. Like, how do you voice this guy who just he is the runt of the litter? He's such a goofball. And working with Tony Oliver, we kind of collaborated and kind of found a voice that would sort of
That
fit
work.
in
Yeah.
with how odd of a character he is. And he kind of has this, like little kind of New Yorker sound to him a little bit, and he kind of talks as if he's constantly constipated and he's got to go number two everywhere he goes, and he's
Hmm.
just always really wound up, and
Right.
that gave me a really great jumping off point for his voice and his personality, just because you look at his circle and he's kind of like I said, he's the run to the litter. Everybody kind of treats him like crap,
Hmm.
and it's kind of crazy. There's an arc when you look at his story to see. It definitely does speak to the people that you surround yourself and your environment, as far as like making sure that you have people that actually support you. And it's
Right.
it's crazy what you can do if you have like an environment around you that is nurturing to your emotional and mental well-being, where it's like, oh gosh, the things that I can do, the things that I can
Yeah.
achieve. And so I mean, what environment, man. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's really key, especially when it comes to voicing characters like that. But I'm actually quite curious how, if you could tell me, how similar was the character that they, had you voice compared to the one that you auditioned for? Do you think you got the role because it was like, we know Joe, we love that guy, or like was the audition so similar? It was like, yeah, we know he can nail this guy. Let's give it to him.
I mean, it's tough because you don't want to go too cartoonish for something like
Right.
JoJo's. So, and it's Golden Wind and everything's, very Italian and all that. So, but again, like, so you want to go very, kind of mobster, mafioso, New Yorker, Italian and all that. And they were like, no,
Mhm.
we can't go too heavy on the accents. So it's
Right.
like, damn, okay. So again, it's a constant like process where you kind of put things out there, and then they'll come back to you and they'll say, okay, maybe try this, maybe do this, maybe do this, and just every session working with Tony, it was like kind of wrangling me in a little bit because sometimes you can kind of fly off the handle when you get a little too animated with a character like this, and other
Mhm.
times it's like, no, no, go bigger, go bigger, go big. So again, it's
Yeah.
this constant like collaboration where you have to kind of put your trust in the director and
Mhm.
that they know what they're doing and just trust that they're going to lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Now, to go back to the list of things that I said you were in, because they're very different. And when it comes to, there's like a big Twitter discourse about it pretty recently, and I wanted to pick your brain about it. Of all these titles, Kingdom Hearts 3, 2K, Last of Us, three different type games, and you was doing additional voices for them. Can you like guide me through the process of like, I guess the additional voices role and how different it
I
is for like
you
per
know
game?
it's what's the expression that they say, jack of all trades, master of none, where
Hmm.
for a lot of these types of roles, additional roles, and it doesn't matter if it's a video game or anime or animation or whatever, they like certain roles need to be filled. You're
Right.
always going to have your hero, you're going to have your villain, you're going to have your princess, you're going to have your best friend or whatever it is. But
Hmm.
sometimes you need, in the sports world, like a utility guy, a
Yeah.
guy that maybe isn't like the starring role, but that can give you, a variety of 4 or 5 different characters, each that are unique from the next. And
Hmm.
sometimes that's just as important to kind of round out your cast, to have that versatility.
Yeah.
And it speaks to just, are you versatile enough where you can pick up, a couple of different roles here
Hmm.
or there, on a whim with what they throw at you. And there, in my opinion, there's no shame to additional voices. Hey, a win
Oh,
is
I
a
agree.
win. You booked it, you're on it, you're doing it. Get it, and everybody does it. And there are big names in voiceover that do additional voices. Um, you know, big names in this industry that still find themselves doing it. And it's like there's no shame in it. So,
Yeah.
why not, man?
I remember when the remake for Final Fantasy VII came out, and like there's like a Twitter post with like the cast, and I was just looking through the additional voices. And it was just like big name after big name. I'm
Yeah.
like, man, that's insane. That just even the additional voices roster was just so
And
stacked.
go and watch any movie and you look at the end credits and you're going to find the walla groups.
Hmm.
Look at the walla groups. You're going to see some big names, man, some talented people on those credits that do walla.
Right.
It's for a movie, it's for, but again, at the end of the day, they may be, lead here, but at the end of the day, you still got to work. You got to
Exactly.
keep yourself busy. So why wouldn't you? Why would you deny yourself the opportunities? You know. So that's
Mhm.
the way I look at it.
Yeah. Now, I took a class with you. That's how we first met. And I remember when I first heard your voice, because I never heard you speak. Like I never like seen any like interviews or anything. And when I first heard your voice, and I only knew you from like Daruk, I'm like, whoa, like that's pretty different.
It it
Now,
is it is crazy, man.
yeah, can you tell me, because of course everyone can kind of put down like a deeper voice, but like, how are you able to, I guess, sustain that? Like, was the sessions very long? Do you find that difficult to like get that deep voice and like keep it? Did you train?
Sessions were long for Daruk. I mean, we'd go 3 or 4 hours. And one of
Hmm.
the things that, I heard a lot when I was studying voiceover, hey, if you're going to do a voice, doesn't matter, if it's animation, video games, whatever, make sure that you can do the voice, but not just do it for like 5 or 6 minutes. Like, can you legit do this voice for like 4 hours?
Hmm.
Like, and don't kid yourself. I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. Like, and there's a certain degree of like vocal wear and tear that, like,
Right.
just over the course of 3 or 4 hours, man, it wears on you. And fortunately, one of the things that I'll say that's been really good about the voiceover industry, I would say probably the past 3 years or so, there has
Mhm.
been this renewed focus on vocal health,
Yeah, that's good.
as especially as it pertains to like creature voices or anything that's just like really, really strenuous.
Hmm.
I worked on a video game. I can't say which one, but I did some creature voices recently, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna take it easy, and like your average voiceover session could be 2 hours, could be 3 hours, could be 4 hours. If
Yeah.
it is a creature voice session, and they already will tell you like, hey, this is gonna kick your butt. One of the new things that SAG is pushing for is that anything vocally stressful will actually be 2 hours,
Okay.
and that is as
That's
far
it.
as they can go. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, thank God.
that's good.
Because it's like, if I had to do 4 hours on some of these voices, like there would just be no way, man. Like you just and it's not just the creature voices, man. It's
Hmm.
military speak. If you do efforts and stuff like that, like say for example, you're doing like a Call of Duty, or Modern Warfare, or whatever, any of that stuff, it might not seem like much, but like let's say you have a 2 hour session and they want you to do 200, 250 lines,
Yeah,
and
mostly
every
screaming, I'd
every
imagine.
one of those lines is, grenade, get down, oh, RPG incoming, and it's like, it
Right.
again, at first, after 5 minutes, might not seem like a lot, but when you get to like 45 minutes,
Hmm. When it's starting to hit.
an hour, an
Yeah.
hour 15, like, I'm sorry, man, that's gonna wear on you, man. And so, again, the performance notwithstanding, like you got to make sure that you can deliver the goods first of all, but
Hmm.
also you got to make sure you have the stamina where
Yeah.
your voice can hold up and do that. And that is, again, that is a skill set in of its own.
Hmm.
Being able to do it, project and do it safely so that you're not hurting yourself. And I mean, that's why I'll push for it, and sometimes the studios that I work with will fortunately push for it as well. They will tell me, hey, we have something very vocally strenuous. Um, we're going to book you on Friday.
Hmm.
That way, I don't have any other sessions Saturday or Sunday. I can spend the weekend to kind of recover. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
that's good.
absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because let's just say, for the sake of argument, I did something crazy, just ripping up my voice to shreds on like a Monday or a Tuesday. How am I supposed to work if I have sessions Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? Like, you're just,
Right.
like, there's just no way. And so that doesn't do anybody any good. So again, it's one of those things where, the studios and the gaming companies need to be more conscious of it. And
Hmm.
also, as a talent, you have to be willing to speak up too and kind of be like, hey, look,
Yeah, like I
can we
can't.
do this? Can we try
Mhm.
this? Can we, if it's going to be taxing, let's try and move it to a Friday or something like that. And usually people are pretty cool about that stuff. Again, when it comes to vocal health, I mean, everybody across the board is usually very understanding, very cool, and
Mhm.
very just they just like, nobody wants to wreck somebody's voice,
Right.
Nobody wants to be the reason why somebody blew out their vocal cords or anything like that. So again, everybody's just trying to help out as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important thing because, like, I see a lot of, at least I've been in classes with like newer people, and like, kind of what the classes are is kind of them like learning their limits, and
Mm.
like how much they could scream for a while, like how long they could do it. And I'm sure classes versus sessions is completely different. and building that stamina. I think that in itself is a skill that doesn't really get spoken about too much. But it's nice to hear that, things are kind of shifting towards the vocal health, way. But to go forward, one thing that I did want to ask you about is the kind of stereotypical what got you into voice acting. But like, I'm sure, were you a gamer growing up? I don't want to make an assumption.
No, I don't want to say that I was a latchkey kid, but I
Hmm.
was a little bit of a latchkey kid. I grew up, and my brother, who's about 7, 8 years older than I was, we had the NES in the house. We'd have the Super NES, and
Right.
by the time the N64 came out, my brother was already out of the house. So that was the first system that I had entirely to
Yeah,
myself.
all yours.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, finally, now I don't have to fight somebody for, to get some playing time on the video games and all that stuff. And I did play the original Zelda. I played, Link to the Past. I played Super Metroid. Metroid franchise, one of my favorite freaking franchises in all of video games. I'm like smack dab in the middle of Metroid Dread right now. I am knee
Nice.
deep in that. I am loving that game. It is so damn good.
Hmm.
Um, and so again, I video game, man, and I go in and out. Like there'd be stretches. Surprisingly during college, I didn't game as much because I was more focused on some of my studies.
Yeah. Good for
But
you, honestly.
I did have an Xbox, I did have a PS2,
Hmm. What'd you study
GameCube,
in
all
college?
that.
If you don't mind me asking.
Theater. That
Okay.
was my thing. I was a theater student through and through. So again, doing plays, did a lot of Shakespeare, and kind of going back to the vocal health portion of everything. One of the techniques that I studied in college was like they call it kind of voice and movement, vocal
Hmm.
projection, vocal safety.
Yeah.
A lot of it involves like stretches, breathing techniques, Pilates, yoga, stuff like that. And there's a technique that my professors really focused on. It was pioneered by a woman by the name of Catherine Fitzmaurice.
Okay.
And she has a very unique technique that, breath support, diaphragm work, all that stuff. Because if you think of it in terms of like, you're in a theater and now you have to project. Now you
Hmm.
may not be hooked up to a microphone per se.
Yeah, you got
Now
to
you
make sure
have to
everyone in the
project
back hear
that
you.
the people in back. So how do
Yeah.
you do that? How do you project and enunciate and do it with such clarity and support so that you're not blowing your voice out? I know it's crazy, right? So how do you do that?
Hmm.
So again, that was a part of what my training was. And come to find out, Amelia Gotham, who voices Mifa in Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
we were talking. She's like, "Oh yeah, I studied that too." I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." So again,
No
it's
way.
we obviously went to different colleges and all that, but
Hmm.
it's just it's crazy to hear when like somebody knows this like crazy technique that you think is like totally secret, like like not that like
Yeah.
anybody's like trying to hide it from anybody, but again, you don't know if anybody knows the same techniques that you do. And so it
Hmm.
was always fun. So we kind of talked about that a little bit. And she's like, if you've ever chatted with Amelia, she's very kind of quiet, very reserved, very much like Mifa herself, has a lot of those same personality traits.
Yeah.
But again, she's really into like her fitness and her exercise and her yoga and her Pilates and like all that
Hmm.
stuff, man. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a theater major. That was my deal. And
Okay.
for a stretch there in college, I got away from like console gaming and I got more into like computer gaming. So I was all about like Counter-Strike. I was all about World of Warcraft. I was all about
Oh,
Dota. I
okay.
love Dota. Oh my
Dota's good.
God.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
number of hours that I logged on Dota, it's just it's unreal,
It's
man.
so easy to waste time in that game. It's great.
Dota damn near ended my marriage. My wife, Dota is a four-letter word to my wife.
That's great. Now, I'm glad that we got this conversation in because when I bring up gaming, I know a lot of voice actors, they kind of get inspired by like maybe a video game that they play. And it's like, all right, I want to be in this. I want to do this. But
Absolutely.
I met
Absolutely.
some where like they are inspired by just actual, theater, or movies, inspiration just comes in many forms. Now, do you think video games is the main inspiration? I was like, yo, I want to do acting, I want to do VO, or like was there like a maybe like a movie or something that you watched, or maybe just living that made you realize that
My first,
this is it?
I never thought about going into voiceover. It was never like, oh, let me get into voiceover. Like I gotta do it. I was like, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people don't know how to get into it. And a lot of people don't. People just
Yeah.
think, oh, okay, I can do television, I can do on camera acting and all that stuff. And kind of picking up where we left off, I graduated from college. I had my degree in theater, did a
Hmm.
bunch of Shakespeare, did all that stuff,
That's
and I
sick.
started working some local theater in my area, and I found out very, very quickly that unless you are on Broadway or you're on a national tour, your ass ain't making money in theater. Like, let's just be real, man. It is hard to make a living doing theater these days. Unless you're like I said, in one of those big contracts, Broadway, off Broadway, stuff like that. And so it's hard, man. And
Hmm.
so I kicked it around for a little bit and I was like, I gotta do something. And I had been doing character voices at Disneyland
Oh, no
since
way.
about 2004, 2005.
How did that happen?
Just went out for an audition. Again, a buddy of mine in my theater program was like, "Hey, they're doing these auditions. Do you want to go out?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever. Okay, I need a job. Like, I just,
Right.
yeah, I could probably get a job. Why not? Yeah." So I did it, and I ended up falling in love with it. It was great to be able to apply what I had learned in my theater program directly into a professional type setting
Right.
almost immediately,
Yeah.
and it was great. And based off of the character voice work that I did, that I'm still doing over at Disneyland,
Hmm.
that was sort of my gateway into voiceover. Like I said, I graduated in 2008 and I kind of kicked it around a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I think I should probably get serious about this voiceover thing. So
Yeah.
I started taking classes. I started taking classes and just hustling and putting it together and kind of learning the craft and learning the tricks of the trade and picking it all up. And it took me a while, believe me. Like I was kind of a slow learner and I did
Hmm.
not have a whole lot of momentum behind me. To give you some perspective, I didn't start voiceover until maybe about 2012,
Oh, wow.
2011, around that time.
Yeah.
I didn't start booking until 2015, 2016.
Wow.
And I mean, when I say booking, I mean like I booked a job and I don't book another one for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So again, like I mean, the trajectory and the path to becoming just a working actor,
It's a
it
grind.
takes
Yeah.
time, man. It is you're right. It is a grind. It wears you down.
Now, what did
Um,
you do to like, stay determined, because of course, with anything, when the progress is slow, it starts
yeah.
to hit. So like, what helped you
Um,
keep at it?
you know, uh, we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier about Pesci, but having that support group,
Yeah.
having people in your life that will nurture your passions, that will be there for you, that support you, having an environment around you that will sustain those passions and those loves that you have. I'm blessed that I have great friends, great family
Hmm.
with me that allow me to pursue those things, and people that will encourage you, and just I was able to find like-minded people like myself that,
Yeah.
again,
That's
you
important.
build each other up and you're there for one another.
Hmm.
In college there was this girl that I dated. I'm not going to name her name, but it was a very toxic relationship, just
Hmm.
for many reasons. But she would always criticize me. She was like, "What's with the voices? Why do you do the voices? Why do you do that? That's so
Right.
dumb." Like, and so for me, as someone that makes my living making voices and
Hmm.
being silly and all that stuff, it kind of it kind of closed me off a little bit, or that portion of my journey.
Yeah.
You kind of you maybe if she wasn't in my life, that maybe I could have pursued voiceover even earlier, And
Hmm.
got it off the floor a little earlier. Who knows, but it is one of those things where it's like, make sure that you have people around you that are going to nurture and encourage and that are like-minded, that are just going to be a positive influence on
Right.
you. And that the same goes for, it doesn't matter if you're voiceover. That's not exclusive to just voiceover. You could be, if you want to be a plumber, find other plumbers. If you want
Right.
to be, a guitar player, find other guitar players. If you want to
Hmm.
be, a truck driver or, a model or whatever, like find other people that are going through the same experiences and having the same thoughts and kind of going through the same struggles that you are. That way, you're not alone.
Right.
And it's great to have these people in your lives that again will just encourage and nurture your growth as a human being and as an artist.
Hmm. Because yeah, I would say like you are definitely the company that you keep. Like
Absolutely.
the people that you have around you definitely got to either have like the same goals, same interests, or at least got to support you.
Hmm.
And kind of when you're kind of just going through like your social circle and you're realizing you might have some folks that might not align with it, it might be difficult to cut some people off, but I think it's
Absolutely.
important when it comes to the goals. That's good. That's
Absolutely.
deep. So what do you think is the biggest hurdle that you had to get over in terms of voiceover? Do you think that's it, or like was there
Um,
other things?
Part of it was that. Part of it is also the way that you handle it.
Yeah.
One of the piece of advice that I got from one of my college acting teachers, and again, you know, I remember it clearly to this day, but she said, "You are your own business, whether
Mm-hmm.
you realize it or not. You are your own brand. Are you Coke?
Yeah.
Are you Pepsi? Are you Honda? Are you Toyota? What are you? And figure
Right.
out who you are and like what you put out there and what you give off to people. And in with respects to voiceover, there is a degree of overhead that you need to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to look at it less and less of I am doing this as a hobby, and you have to think of it more like I am starting a business.
Right.
Like I am legit going into a business venture. And if you do it like that, then maybe it'll be a little bit easier. But there is a certain amount of like overhead financially where it takes, you gotta build it up. You gotta have some capital. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
great things is like, you can kind of work your way up. Like I started off with like a $200 microphone and an iPad to
Yeah.
record. And you build your way up. Like it does, you don't need to throw down a bunch of cash all at once.
Mm-hmm.
You make little upgrades here or there, like you would in a video game, like you would in an
Yeah.
RPG or something like that.
Yeah.
You go and you upgrade the this, and instead of the armor or the shield or now you're upgrading the mic or the preamp or it's just like that. So if you treat it like that, I think it'll serve you very well. After I graduated from college, my parents, man, they were they were like, we want you to go to grad school. You need to go to grad school. You got to get a master's degree. And at that point in time, I was so burnt out with school.
Yeah.
And I had taken a lot of what I had learned already in college and I got my bachelor's degree and I was like, I cannot do another 3 years intensive of like just I cannot like I'm gonna burn myself out. And so, like I said, um, my voiceover classes,
Mm-hmm.
all the studying that I did, all that work, that was effectively my master's program.
Yeah.
That was my graduate school, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you look at it that way, if you look at it through that lens, it might serve you very well. Again, think big picture. Think you're starting up a business. Think you're, long term, you are building something.
Right.
The type of success in this industry is not going to happen overnight. You put in all the work and you
Oh
take
yeah.
all the classes and you do all that stuff. And unfortunately, nobody's really going to notice. Nobody's going to take notice until the success and the wins and like all the cool
Mm-hmm.
jobs and all that, then that's when people are going to notice. They're not going to notice when you're, staying up late, taking classes, doing all the homework, doing all like
Yeah.
that's
People
just,
not seeing the journey; they just see the
nope,
results.
nope. It's just part of the process.
Yeah, I have my master's degree, and that's not a flex, you know,
Wow. No, no.
because
God bless you.
thank you, well, thank you. But like, I graduated last year, 2020, and I knew I wanted to like do voiceover like seriously, like at the end of my first year of my grad program, and I was just in it, kind of like trying to juggle like voiceover and graduate school, but just going to graduate school just kind of like sucked to that creativity that I
Yeah.
like wanted to like put
Yeah.
into VO, you know? And once when I started taking classes, really getting into it, I'm like, okay, like this makes sense. You know, I'm around these like-minded people, and this is something that I actually want to do, you know? Like I'm all for having a backup plan, like master's degree is kind of that. But I was just in the classes like, man, I wish I was in VO. Like I wish I was like
And
working on the
that's
craft
something
right
that
now, you know?
does push me every day. It's like, I have friends of mine that book something and it's like, oh man, that's really cool. And I'm like, I'm happy for them. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't say it's even a jealousy thing. It's just like a, damn, I wish I could have been in that. Or damn, I'd like to work with that
Yeah.
company. I'd like to work with that on that series or, whatever. And it's like, you tell yourself, you know what, it didn't happen right now, but I'm my chance, my time will come. And
Mhm.
again, those are the little things, having those people. And again, it's not a jealousy thing. And it's just it's those having those people around you kind of pushes you and it drives you to like, you got to take it to another level. Got to take it a lot farther.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the cool thing about like this journey, you know? And this is something that like I kind of experienced in like other hobbies, but VO is like learning to celebrate people's victories rather than like, you know, getting jealous. That definitely goes a long way in just like, you know, not getting like either burnt out or jealous.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I want to be in, and I'm trying not to marry the idea of like getting in certain projects. But you know, if anyone will put me in Fire Emblem, you know, I won't complain. But like,
So I'll say this, man, because when I was in my college theater program, it
yeah.
was cutthroat, man. It was cutthroat.
I
Like
went to theater school. I
backstabby.
seen how the theater majors were. I know
It
how it is.
was cutthroat.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say that I was like a battered puppy or anything like that when I came into VO, because I think that's a little too dramatic.
Hmm.
But based off of the experiences that I had had in my college life, and like I said, voiceover, my classes, those were my graduate program. So I
Right.
kind of came into the voiceover community when I was taking some of those early classes, and I came in very defensive. I came
Yeah.
in with my guard up. And I was like, all right, which one of yous is gonna try and shank me in the back, whatever? Like who's coming for me, or whatever.
Right.
And it took me a little bit of time to realize, oh wait, no. Like these people aren't like that. Like nobody's trying to get you. Nobody's trying to backstab you. Nobody like there's none of that stuff going on. And
Hmm.
everybody's really nice and super supportive and like on a certain level, you kind of almost have to like unlearn certain things that you were conditioned to, at least for me, from my
Yeah.
college experience.
Hmm.
But I'm grateful for it, and I'm glad that I didn't let my negative experiences in college affect what I'm doing now at this level in this community.
Yeah. Now, there's two different roads how I want to take this conversation. So I'm gonna try to go one route and kind of loop around to the other, but I
Okay,
think this one makes more sense. Now, on the topic of classes, you started teaching with Kirsten Day.
I did.
Yeah. How did that come to be, and how was it like to transition from like going from taking classes? I'm sure you're still taking classes as everyone does, but like taking classes to like teaching. Like, was your first class like were you nervous? Did you know like what type of advice you want to give? Like, how was that experience?
It's funny because I had never done classes until I started teaching with Kirsten and Sound On, but I
Hmm.
had done a couple of private lessons before. Like some people had reached out to me. It was like, hey, I'm young. I'm trying to learn voiceover. Do you teach private lessons? And I was like, again, that was sort of where I really, really kind of cut my teeth a little bit, and
Yeah.
just as far as like trying to be able to like break down a piece of copy, break down the fundamentals and the technique and what works and what doesn't work. And it's tough because I don't think I have like a method per se. I don't know if
Hmm.
I have like a technique or anything like that when it comes to teaching.
Yeah.
I'm more kind of organic, which I mean,
It works.
it you know you kind of go with your gut, you kind of go with your ear,
Hmm.
you go with what feels right. I'm a little organic that way when it comes to how does this feel, how does this sound. um
Yeah.
can you close your eyes and listen to something and immediately picture it in a video game, or can you
Hmm.
picture it in on a cartoon, or anything like that? Like, is it like, just close your eyes, like, does it fit, would it work?
Right.
And to me, that's the test right there. Is like, would that work?
Hmm.
um and you mentioned Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures earlier. uh this was before COVID, but I was in the studio recording. I'd come in, doing a couple of guest spots on Barbie Dreamhouse, and
Yeah.
we recorded all that prelay as a group, which almost
Hmm.
never happens. Like,
Oh,
usually
that sounds like it's so fun.
when you come in, you just do like your, however many lines, and you do that, and they kind of piece them together.
Right.
However, sometimes, especially for animation, if they really want to, if they're really serious, if they really want to commit to it, they will try to get everybody's schedules all together and have
Yeah.
everybody all in the booth in the studio at the same time, which, believe me, it's a lot of fun, man.
I
It's
could
so much
imagine.
more fun. And it's like, okay, now you go off of what that person is doing, and then, like, you just, it's like a radio play, it's like an audio drama, and I freaking loved it, man.
Hmm.
And when I'm there, I just, happen to be chilling out, getting ready to go in, and I ended up sitting down and talk with Kirsten, and we just hit it off. She's just great people, and we just had
Oh
a
yeah.
great vibe. um and based off of that little bit of work that we did together on Barbie Dreamhouse, she was like, "Hey, this is years and years later down the road." She was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm doing this sound on studio thing. Would you ever want to come and teach?" And it's a gut shake. It's like, I've never done this before.
Hmm.
Can I do it? And some of it, you can either run from it, or you can run through it. You can just
Right.
dive right in. And it's one of those things where you don't know until you try. And it's funny, because I remember that first class where it was like, okay, am I overthinking it? Am I like, you do get nervous, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's the good kind of nerves, where it's like, I care, like, I want to try, I want to do, if I'm going to teach, I want to make sure that you guys are getting something from it. Like, I want to make sure that it's worth your time, that it's worth your while. And so,
Hmm.
you start, like, kind of getting in your head a little bit. And it's almost like when I started VO in my early days, where it's like, okay, you start, like, getting nervous, and it's like, okay, doing this and this, and it's like, it's great, it's one of those things that, like, lets you know that you're still alive.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to describe, but yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, at least from the student perspective. Well, was my class like your first class, or did you do some prior to that?
I don't remember which class, because again, Kirsten would bring us in like every month or so.
Hmm.
So it might have been, I don't remember.
Ah, I would have
You're
looked
either
up a month.
first or second class.
Okay. Okay. Because it was like early in the year. It was either April or May.
It might have been. It might have been.
Oh wow.
It might have been.
Historic.
Yeah.
Well, just on that, like, just going back from when you was taking classes, I'm sure you were taking classes with people you probably looked up to in VO, or maybe you just looked up, that VO teachers and like you found them. But it must have been just cool to see people that was just excited to like,
Surreal.
you know, meet you, like.
Surreal. I remember when I first started, my very first voiceover class was with
Hmm.
Charlie Adler, who,
Yeah.
if you've watched a cartoon in the past 40 years, Charlie Adler's probably been in it.
Right.
And I remember when I was growing up, back in kind of like the mid late 90s, Nickelodeon would have these little vignettes that they would play in between, like, on the commercials of episodes and all that stuff. And they would give you like a behind the scenes look. Like, one time they would do like behind the scenes of like SpongeBob, or
Hmm.
behind the scenes of like, Rocco's Modern Life, or like, Real Monsters. And I remember seeing, like, I'm telling you, like, 9-year-old Joe, who's watching cable TV at his grandma's house,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing Charlie Adler in the booth doing what he does. at the
Yeah,
highest level. And again, Nickelodeon is kind of peeling back the curtain. It's like, hey, this is how the cartoon is made. This is what we do. These are
I
the people
love
that
that.
voice it. And again, just me as an 8, 9 year old version of Joe, like that to the fact that I'm still able to recall that and like recall it so vividly. Fast forward to me being, I don't know, 25 years old, taking my first voiceover class with Charlie Adler. I mean, bro, like
Yeah,
it doesn't get
crazy
any
stuff.
better than that. Like
Yeah.
like that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
Like yeah. I mean, it just you get chills, you get like goosebumps thinking about it. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is
Yeah, and
so surreal,
now it
you
comes
know?
full circle because someone
Absolutely.
that played Breath of the Wild, watched JoJo, was like, man, this guy, I
And
need to meet this guy. And
and
then they
I'll,
do, and they gets excited to see you. That's like,
I'll tell you, man, during some of those sessions, for Breath of the Wild, like we would be done and I would go back to my car and you just have a moment where it's just like, dude,
mhm.
like I'm working on Zelda. Like
Yeah,
that it's such a surreal feeling. It's unreal. It's unlike anything else. And again, going back to 5-year-old version of Joe that
hmm,
is in his cousin's house playing the original Zelda on the NES,
yeah,
playing Ocarina of Time on the N64, playing Wind Waker. Never in a million years could I have imagined that version of me would go on to be doing what I'm doing right now. It's like, yeah, it's surreal.
surreal.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. I could just imagine how you felt just sitting in the car, like, yo,
When
man.
they told me what we're working on, it was I've never won the lottery. I probably never will, but I imagine that's what winning the lottery feels like.
Mm-hmm. Because did you know what you was auditioning for when you
No,
was?
no, they
Wow.
kept it secret. They were and again, they usually don't. They keep everything kind of hush hush because they don't want leaks to get out. They don't want
Hmm.
spoilers or anything like that. So again, they're very like hush 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 hush. Um, and so day one, I come in, and they're like, "So Joe, it's the new Zelda game," and it's
Oh
like,
man.
"Oh man, you just need a moment to collect yourself." Like again,
Yeah.
it's like what is going on here? This is the coolest.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I hope you get more roles like that because I could just imagine that feeling. It's just like, how do you recapture that?
Again, if you're not geeking out, if you're not having those moments where it's like, oh man, like if you're not auditioning for things and you're not saying to yourself, man, I really want that job, then maybe you got to check your pulse, check your head, like something ain't right, man. Because let me tell you, man, there are auditions that I get on the regular where it's like, I want to be in this. I want to
Hmm.
do this. I want to be a part of this, and it pushes you, just it drives you that extra level.
Yeah. Now I just have a few more things I want to touch on because we're getting about that time. Do you have any, I guess, tips on networking?
um God,
Tips or secrets?
I don't know if I have a tip or a secret or anything like that. Do it network. I mean that I mean I the, and it's tough because prior to getting into voiceover, I would say I was a very introverted person. I was very, very shy, very to myself.
Hmm.
um but it is a necessary evil. You have to do it. You have to talk to people. You have
Yeah.
to follow up with people. Everybody's all email, 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 like all that is like you got to do it. Like it is just a part of doing voiceover. And in voiceover, you're not just I found out very quickly, you are not just an actor. Like
Right.
if you think like, oh, I could just be an actor and like that's that, man, so wrong.
You got
So
a rude
wrong.
awakening.
Like, okay, especially right now because everybody's working from COVID. So not only are you your own actor, now you have to be your own like engineer, tech guy. Because
Hmm.
again, everybody's working from home, so you got to make sure that you are on top of, your mic and your audio and your processor and like all that you just got to be like on top of it, you
Yeah.
know? And so one of the other hats that you have to wear is also like your social media. Like, okay, you got to be your own
Mhm.
hype man. You got to be your own publicist. You got to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer of out of sight, out of mind. So if people don't see you, if they're not, like unfortunately, you have to remind people that you live, that you're alive.
You're
you
right.
know, it's a part of our business. Like, and you don't want to be like a human pop-up ad, or you don't want to be like,
Hmm.
bugging anybody. And there's a right way of doing it. There's a wrong way of doing it. Um, but just, hey guys, I'm around. I exist. You know,
Don't
that's
forget
it.
about me.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
forget about me. And there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it. The biggest advice that I could give when it comes to something like that is don't look at people for what they can give you or what they can get you or anything like that.
Hmm.
Just look at them as people. Just the person.
Right.
Just don't think of like what opportunities or what you can gain from them, or just, hey, I like this person. And it's crazy, man, because I have friends of mine that do really cool stuff, that are in some really cool projects.
Yeah.
I don't know them as so and so that works on this. I don't
Hmm.
know them as so and so that is on that series. I just know them as, so and so, because
Yeah.
that's it. That's I just like, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way. Sometimes I don't even watch what they're doing. Like I'm like, okay, I haven't played that game yet, or I haven't watched that series yet, or anything like that. So it's like I'm
Hmm.
completely lost on like, what they may or may not be working on. But it's like I just know the person.
Yeah.
And
And
to
that's
me,
totally
that
fair because, like, as VO
yeah,
people, just busy just doing your own stuff, It's
yeah,
totally fair that you might miss a project or two, but yeah, I totally agree.
yeah. So
But to segue to my final question,
all right, all right.
which might be my final question, we'll see. When it comes to networking, the classes, you've been doing this grind for quite some time. How do you think, besides of the obvious, like, we're working from home now because of COVID stuff, but I think we're going back to the studio, um, how has it changed from when you started to now in terms of the processes, maybe in terms of like the people that you have classes with? Because I tweeted about this. I had a class with, I think it was Patrick Seitz, and just being in that class, I was looking around. There was like so many voice actors of color in there, and that made me
Yes.
feel like really comfortable because I'm like, it's nice to see that like we're all grinding and we're able to represent
Yeah.
the roles that we're auditioning for and the roles that's out there, But just I guess tell me how maybe it could have been different back then compared to now. Maybe it wasn't. Just I guess.
That's that's actually a really good observation on Patrick's part. Um, just in the past, I don't even want to say 3 years. I'd say maybe 2 years,
Hmm.
maybe even year. There has been a greater push for authenticity as it pertains to diversity, which I absolutely love. Um, I love that people are more open to colorblind casting, and giving people of color opportunities that they might not have gotten 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
Um, you reminded me of something. When we were working on Barbie Dreamhouse, again, prelay, we're all in the same booth. It's one of those big booths that they can seat, 7, 8 people at a time, and we're all doing that. And one of the things that I absolutely loved was looking at that cast. And you can look up that cast right now. Go on IMDb, look at that cast,
Oh, say less.
because there's a very, very diverse cast,
Hmm.
and I get it. Like, I get it. It's Barbie, and then it's almost, I don't want to say it's become a punchline, but like for some people, especially people of color, like Barbie might even be perceived as an insult.
Right.
one of the things that I really, really appreciated the hell out of them, and even you look at the writers, behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
women of color. You look at the cast. You have a great diverse representation of different cultures and backgrounds on there. And
Go
again,
ahead, Barbie. I wouldn't have expected this from Barbie.
yeah.
That's awesome.
And again, looking at the people to my right, people to my left, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, it was definitely a moment that I was very proud to work on that show.
Right.
And I think that is the direction that we hopefully continue to go in.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, man,
Real
that's
quick,
a
real quick about Barbie, man, because
man. That's
originally,
on the sink in.
they had reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, does anybody know a Hispanic actor? We have this one role where we need somebody to play a Hispanic character." And they sent me the audition, and I auditioned for two characters. One was a Hispanic guy, and the
Mm-hmm.
other one was a Russian bad guy.
Yeah.
I booked the Russian bad guy. I did not
Nice.
book the Hispanic.
Wow.
So there's a couple of things that you can take from that. You could take from it, it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. He could play the character. Doesn't matter the color of his skin.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, that's an opportunity that came my way and I was able to run with it and roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that they came to me trying to to look at it through a perspective of we want to have that representation. We
Right.
want to have that level of authenticity and
Mm-hmm.
not just, whoever,
Yeah.
you
Cause
know.
that's big. Cause this when I was a kid, I would be so obsessed. I don't know why I was like that, but I'd be so obsessed with like looking up the cast of voice actors, even when I was younger, just watching like Cartoon Network cartoons. And it was people like, Phil Lamar that was just like voicing these black characters. And I was like, oh, Cree Summers, for example, another one that
Yeah.
really had me. It was like, okay, like there's some representation, excuse me, of people like me in these shows. And sometimes it wasn't. I might look up a black character and it wouldn't be a black person. I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. But it's getting better nowadays. But
Yeah.
it's just nice to see that like shows such as Barbie, who was kind of like taking the initiative before last year when everything was happening, was making that effort. That's really
Yeah.
good. That's really neat. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I would like to thank you for your time. I know we got Survivor Series coming up,
That's
maybe right
right.
now. I
I
think
think
it's
it's
like
going on
starting.
right now.
It's 9 p.m. here, so I think it's starting. So I know we're both wrestling fans. I was pretty excited to find that out about you, that you also like wrestling.
I am. I'm a big wrestling fan. I struggle right now to watch anything that's WWE because it's hard to watch right now. It's
Oh my
real
gosh.
hard. They
Yeah.
just laid a bunch of people off yesterday or 2 days ago, and it's hard to watch. I'm more of an AEW guy.
So am I.
And even at that, it's hard to watch. Not because I don't like the product, it's because I actually have kids. And so my kids, like my daughter is like she controls the TV. She's always wanted to watch her shows.
Yeah.
And so, being able to sit down and watch some wrestling, is kind of hard to do. But man, I got Full Gear the other day. I got the pay-per-view and it's great. I love wrestling, man. I love it. I love it.
AEW's been killing it. Mind
Yeah.
you, when I was younger, John Morrison was like my favorite wrestler. It was very obscure because not much people liked him, but that
Yeah.
was my guy. And seeing him come back, I'm like, all right, he's gonna get the push he deserves. He was killing it in the Indies, and then nothing, nothing. I was so disappointed. So
Again,
disappointed.
that's one of the reasons why it's hard to watch WWE because they have these none of it is the talent's fault because you look and
Oh yeah,
especially a guy like Morrison. I mean, my God, like you look at the things that he can do, and I think we all know
crazy.
he can wrestle. Like the
Yeah,
things we have seen him do is just amazing, and like they don't do anything with him.
they
Like they
don't.
don't
You know,
have a.
yeah, it's like
It's
why you
it's
bring him?
yeah. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating, and that's one of the reasons why I have a hard time watching like an NXT or
Hmm.
even a Raw or a SmackDown. It's like, why am I going to watch these characters and get invested if you guys are going to end up screwing something up or like
Yeah.
releasing these people or like it's hard to watch, man. Um,
Once
yeah.
when I hear that an NXT person I like is going to the main roster, I'm like, oh
Ooh,
no, oh no.
that's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah.
But hey, hopefully Survivor Series is good. The build's been okay, but we'll see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. Whoever's left on on the WWE roster.
Someone posted a tweet. If I find it, I'll send it to you. It was like the chair, like the fan chair from the Royal Rumble of 2019. I think there was like
Oh,
94 superstars, and like
oh,
only it was like less than half was left.
oh,
Bray Wyatt wasn't even on the chair. I'm just like,
oh.
what's happening?
That's hard. That's
It's
hard.
rough.
Oof.
But yeah. So fingers crossed for a good pay-per-view tonight.
Let's
But thank
hope
you for your
so.
time. It's been
Yeah.
great. Do you have any maybe personal projects that you might want to talk about that you
Oh,
like
I
share?
I mean
I
it's
know you have
tough
a
because
blog.
there are some really cool projects that I've worked on recently that I can't talk about. As far as
Yeah.
stuff that I can talk about, that is out right now. Age of Calamity just celebrated their 1 year anniversary. There's some new
Nice.
DLC that just came out. So if you guys are big Age of Calamity fans, check it out. Also Transformers War for Cybertron
Oh,
trilogy on Netflix. I am Cheetor on that.
nice.
So definitely check it out. Yeah, that's all I'm allowed to talk about right now.
Okay.
But there may be some really cool announcements coming down the line.
Awesome.
So,
And what's your Twitter so people can know to follow you and
uh,
keep up?
at Joe Hernandez VO. Same thing on Instagram. I'll be honest with you, I'm more active on Twitter than I am on Instagram. But hit me up there, at Joe Hernandez VO. That's where you find me.
Awesome. Well, Joe, it was a pleasure to catch up with you. It
Yeah,
was a nice chat.
yeah.
Have a great rest of your day, my friend.
You too. Have a great Survivor Series.
Nice. You too.
We'll talk to you later.
Peace.
Bye.